Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having us here. My name is Denis Nazarov, and I'm the co-founder of Mine. And at Mine, we are building tools to empower creators and organizations with decentralized infrastructure. And we're contributing to the open source development of Mediachain, which is an open data network for creative works. But first, let's talk about sharing. So sharing is at the core of vibrant and open communities. Wikipedia, for example, is the most thorough encyclopedia ever created in the history of humankind, all completely crowdsourced by a community of participants. Open science has created tremendous innovation through open publishing of research and data. And open source projects are kind of the de facto default for both organizations and developers because of their quality and their community support. And GLAMs are also the champions of sharing. So many of you have shared collections as openly licensed data sets, and DPLA has aggregated over 13 million items from institutions, and Europeana has aggregated over 50 million across the European Union. So open access is a really powerful force, and over 1 billion works are licensed under the Creative Commons license, and open publishing is included natively in large publishing platforms like YouTube, SoundCloud, Medium, and Internet Archive, Wikimedia Commons. So at the click of a button, natively in those platforms, you can include an open license for your creativity. And open licenses have also been adopted by governments and foundations such as the White House and Hewlett, Gates, and Ford. So open data results in really awesome projects. The New York Public Library Labs, which some of the representatives are at DPLAfest, have been part of a really awesome initiative to open up tons and tons of their data, and that has resulted in some really cool projects like oldnyc.org, which was created by a third-party developer, which took images from NYPL's collection of photographers from New York City and placed them on an interactive map. And what that has created is a completely new way of interacting with the collection. And that has driven hundreds of thousands of users, and thousands of people left comments, and there was also an ability to crowdsource typos, so text that the developer OCR'd was fixed by users visiting the website. Ukiyo-e is a project by John Resnick, who's right there in the audience. Really awesome project that took woodblocks from 24 institutions all over the world and aggregated them on one place. John used computer vision to deduplicate prints made from the same woodblock and to group them together, and that has made a tremendous impact on the study of Japanese woodblock prints because now scholars had this one repository to look at all of these things, and that also drove tons of traffic and interaction. And projects like these are really proof that if you open up your data, that you can create tremendous new value for your institution outside of the confines of the physical collection, outside of the walls of your institution. But how we share is broken. And 1.1 billion CC licensed works is really a profound gift, but despite of this, that these works sit disconnected from each other and they live without context, gratitude, or mechanisms for collaboration. And that's because open data lives in silos. So when an institution chooses to publish its data, it uses a proprietary API that speaks its own schema or language. And these exist in isolation and in no way connected to each other and are in incompatible formats. And even when organizations like DPLA do the hard work of aggregating this, that what really happens is another mega silo is formed. And for example, Europeana and DPLA have national boundaries, so they don't communicate with each other as well as they could. So while the internet continues to evolve, open data hasn't. And while web services and apps are data-driven and dynamic, open data has largely been static, devoid of analytics, and rooted in difficult markup. And in terms of attributions, users still have to manually attribute when they're sharing content. So in some cases, social media accounts choose to do so, like History and Pics finally gave Stanley Kubrick a credit, but when it's shared in other instances, we don't know the author. And at the same time, we have technology like Shazam, which lets us hold up our phone and have our phone tell us the artist of a song, or Google reverse image search that lets us query by an image and learn more data about an image. These technologies are not present, part of the open access workflow. And analytics are at the heart of all web applications and mobile applications because everyone's obsessed of using metrics to optimize experiences. There's really no analytics about open access because we don't know where that content is going. So adding a work to the commons is a tremendous gift, but the contributors get very little in return. No feedback, no analytics, not even a like, or even a thank you. And what that world looks like is something like this, that everyone's system is in a different shape and sort of on its own, not connected to other ones. And we believe that these efforts can really amount to more. So where can we look for inspiration? Well, social networks have been capitalizing on network effects for years. You know, platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram. And these network effects have resulted in increasingly powerful communities and, of course, increasingly powerful corporations. And what they've created is this really valuable feedback loop that every time you share, your sharing is rewarded by likes or comments, and that encourages you to share more. So as more users join the network, the more valuable the sum of all of the actions and the sum of the entire network becomes. And our goal is to create a network effect of open data. And to create something that looks like this, where everyone is in the same shape, everyone speaks the same language, and everyone is interconnected. And that is the goal of Mediachain, which is an open data network for creative works. So the properties of Mediachain are a peer-to-peer blockchain infrastructure that is maintained by the contributors to the system instead of a central gatekeeper. Anyone joining the network doesn't need permission to write to the system or read from the system. And all the statements are made in an append-only fashion where they're signed by the contributor. This enables anyone to search across all the data sets that are participating in the system or to filter by contributor. So Mediachain is composed of a system called IPFS, a schema translator, and an image resolver, and I'm going to go into more detail on those. So IPFS, has anyone heard of IPFS? So IPFS is a peer-to-peer networking layer. It combines some of the peer-to-peer technologies behind BitTorrent and Git, and it allows us to create structured data relationships and to basically create relationships between data points in the system so we can relate objects to other objects. And because it's a decentralized network, that every participant in the system shares the ownership of the system. There's no central point of control. And that's what, and it's also, IPFS stands for Interplanetary File System, which is a very exciting name. And so the properties of such a system enable us to create something that looks like this, where everyone is a node that retains control, but we are all connected in one logical system. So the schema translator of Mediachain enables interoperability while preserving the original data structure of the contributed information. And some of you may recognize this XKCD cartoon, which is sort of the classic example of schemas and standards that, you know, a smart new person to the scene notices that there are 14 competing standards and decides that they're going to solve this problem by creating one universal standard that everyone's going to use and it's going to fix all the problems. And it ends up that there are 15 competing standards. And Mediachain acknowledges that data lives in different representations and basically attempting to reconcile everyone's domains with one schema is not going to satisfy everyone's concerns. So the schema translator extracts a minimum subset of fields to enable indexing and linking the data. So fields like the author, the date, the movement, so we can query the data while preserving the original data. So if you have 30 other keys in your JSON structure in your institution, that can still live with the data. And you know, if another institution wants to talk to that data, they can write their own translator for it, but no one is forced to destructively adopt a brand new schema. And these translators are lightweight, version, and idempotent, so they can be modified or improved over time. So the image resolver layer of Mediachain uses image recognition, which returns a single global ID that represents the content of an image. So the Mona Lisa on the left is slightly yellower, on the right is slightly bluer. To a human, we know that this represents the same artwork. But to a machine, a digital fingerprint would be completely different. So image recognition allows very similar representations to resolve to one ID. And that's what enables us to collaboratively talk about a creative work. So today in our open data sets, two institutions may be describing the same artwork, but the way the data lives in silos today, that no one knows about it. Mediachain using the image resolver allows that data to live under one ID, so we can surface differences, we can surface errors and enable collaboration like that. So we see Mediachain as an infrastructure for a data commons. And it enables discovery of data, so if two institutions both have works from Pablo Picasso, now we can query across those institutions very easily because just by virtue of them participating in the system. Attribution becomes native because of the resolver layer. So if someone shares an image on Twitter without attribution, if Twitter integrates with Mediachain, the author's name can be surfaced automatically. Or if Twitter doesn't, a user can query Mediachain for the image and learn who made it. And this enables, the biggest thing is reuse and collaboration. For example, in old NYC, that developer added geocoding to all the images in the collection, which were not present in the original data set from New York Public Library Labs. Now this data can coexist with the original data from New York Public Library Labs without modifying it. It will maintain the identity of the developer, but it will be in the same space as the original data, so anyone can discover it. And we think that these features of the system offer profound opportunities for collaboration. Now institutions can surface that they are describing the same artwork, the same movement. They contain information about the same artist, and it will be very easy to query this. And a quick demo. This actually works in a CLI, but I'm just going to demonstrate the output kind of in these static slides. So imagine two institutions have metadata about the same work. MoMA has this Henri Cartier-Bresson photograph in its collection, as well as the Tate. And MoMA has its own flavor of metadata, while the Tate has some more extended metadata. The resolver would give these two slightly different images one canonical ID, and both MoMA and Tate will write a lightweight translator to translate their common fields to be compatible with other data in Mediachain. So if we do the command line query, if we run the command Mediachain get ID, it will return this JSON response from the system, where the common fields are in red that have been translated using a lightweight schema translation, and we can see in blue that the contributor is MoMA. If we add the raw flag, we can see that the original data with much more proprietary fields that are present in the MoMA schema are preserved. And if someone wants to write a translator for those fields, they are welcome to do so. And if we run Mediachain history ID, we get all the revisions in an array. So we see in blue that this is the data from the Tate, and in red the data with the MoMA, the data from MoMA. And I think that this is the really powerful feature of Mediachain, that it allows institutions to collaborate and add different statements without stepping on each other's toes or destroying each other's data, because it is all assigned by the participants, so you know who made what statement. But the fact that you can find this in one place is really powerful, and the kind of collaboration that doesn't exist today. And we think Mediachain is really complementary to the efforts of DPLA. DPLA is an advocate and authority for open cultural data, while we see Mediachain as improving the open data publishing workflow. Mediachain enables the preservation of identity and reputation while decentralizing the distribution of the network. We really see it as the very bottom layer and as new pipes for a better and smarter reuse of the data certified by DPLA. So we're here today, and you should talk to us to learn more about Mediachain and publishing your data into Mediachain. We're working on a prototype to basically demonstrate the features of the system with actual data, and we'd love to use the open data your institution has published. the GitHub organization is called Mediachain, where you can see all our open source progress. We have a public Slack channel where we do our development in the open, and if you want to look at some of our blogs, we sort of, I think some of the blogs may more coherently explain kind of, more institutional facing use cases that might be a little easier to understand than this technical deep dive. So thank you very much.
And up next, we have Patrick Murray-John. Patrick?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Patrick Murray-John. I'm a developer, mostly for Omeka at Roy Rosenzweig Center for History and New Media. And I just want to share a project that I've been working on in fits and starts to serve as part of the mechanism for getting Omeka 2 to talk better with DPLA. So starting with the JSON-LD output from DPLA's API, I was working on different ways to turn that into the data to insert items into an Omeka site. So if you get good search results from DPLA, want to remix them in Omeka, basically thinking about a plugin to do that. And the mechanism that I hit on for trying to start that process off, basically how to parse out all of the JSON-LD coming from DPLA, was to use a library in PHP called EasyRDF. If any of you came to the demo of Omeka S this morning and saw us sucking in lots of RDF data directly into Omeka S, this is the library that Omeka S uses. And so I started with thinking, okay, maybe just extend this EasyRDF graph class, do all my parsing there, and use that to generate the PHP to stuff data into Omeka. Okay, that's as far as I got. And so first mission of this talk is to say, this thing exists. If there are any PHP developers who think this is a possible useful direction, please fork, send pull requests, ask questions in the issues, and I will address them as best as I can, as I am trying to make this thing talk to Omeka. Yeah. There's a second reason that I wanted to talk about this here. This is where I'm going to do something kind of scary for a lightning talk and ask a question of the audience. Because I found myself thinking in a weird way of, am I really working with JSON as JSON, or am I really working with the graph? So like the approach here is definitely first turn it into a graph, do what I want with RDF, sort of RDF-oriented thinking, or, oh, PowerPoint translation didn't work out so well, so I'll just stay here. Or is the approach to working with data to really parse out as JSON? So the thing that got lost on the second slide is, do you all think of working with data from DPLA as JSON that's also LD? Or is it linked data RDF that just happens to be serialized as JSON? So I hope there's enough developers here to get a show of hands. Who's thinking it's JSON? Like primarily JSON, not necessarily RDF. RDFers? Okay, you're cheating, Don. It's both. Oh, how so?
Choose your own adventure, man.
Okay, so at least there's not like a strong sense in the developers here of there could or should be one or the other. You're like taking it equally. Again, sort of depending.
I lean towards Jason.
You lean towards JSON, but there's a lot of depends on what you want to do with it. Okay, thank you. This is fulfilling the gap in my knowledge that I was hoping to hear about in this very quick lightning talk. Thank you very much.
As long as I can exit out of here and get back to the doc.
There's the second tab has the.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. My name is Brian Tingle. I work at the California Digital Library. I end up using Facebook a lot, probably a lot more than I'd like to admit. And I notice a lot of times when you're using Facebook, you click on some crazy clickbait article, and it's got a section at the bottom of the article with all of these related, equally clickbaity titles of sort of sucking you into more and more content. And so this little thing I worked on, what if the sort of idea was to create Outbrain as one of these content promotion networks. And I guess I didn't test this on whatever version of Internet Explorer this is. Oh, here we go. Needed to reload it. So this is just a thing I threw together, sort of a prototype of a JavaScript library that can take DPLA stuff, and the idea is eventually to embed it on a page. I showed this to my product manager on Calisphere, and she liked it, so we're going to look at incorporating this into Calisphere so that when you're on an item in Calisphere and we have related things in Calisphere, we'll also have related things in DPLA. And then we also might use this on a zero results search page. So if there's nothing in Calisphere, redo your search in DPLA. And show you, you can see the HTML here, maybe not too well. Can I? No, Alt plus. I don't know how to zoom. Oh, something zoomy just came up. I don't know how this, so, and now I'm totally in some weird mode. Any Windows users? All right, well, you can sort of see, I don't know if you can see that at the top. There's the query is just in this data, HTML data. And if you change, can I type here? Bop. Nope, I can't. Oh, yeah, I can. If you change the query and go back to the results, you can see that it updates to the new query. And I have on this page, I don't know if you can quite see, there's a handlebars template that's embedded in the page. So whatever you put in this handlebars template is what shows up on the page. So it basically, whatever you can do a JSON version of your query, it converts that into the DPLA query, and then it'll run it through this handlebars template so that you can render it on the page. I've got a version of it on GitHub where you could take your DPLA key, put it in a JSON file, run gulp on it, and then it'll create the library. It's got a gulp task that pushes it to GH pages. So if you wanted to actually publish the combined thing, you can do that with a gulp task. And so I don't know, I'm trying to, my pitch to you guys is to think about if you're a DPLA participant and you want to have a related items from DPLA sort of widget on your page, this is a sort of a start of something like that. And we're planning on incorporating this into Calisphere. It's in the backlog. So eventually it'll come to the top of the pivotal, and we'll be implementing this. And your machine's all messed up.
Yeah, I know. There we go. All right. Brendan?
Thanks, Mark. Right. So in the true spirit of reporting back from a hackathon, I'm going to not only do some stuff live, which is exciting, but also just talk about stuff that we've been doing in the last couple of days. So let me start with what we're basing this on. We have been working on an open source app with NARA, I should say I'm Brendan from HistoryPin, historypin.org, that has to do with visualizing World War I collections, mostly using in an educational and museum context. In the last couple days, we were very inspired by hearing about all of these other APIs that were presented, 5 of them in fact. And so in a sudden fit of feeling overambitious, we decided to integrate with all 5 of them and see what that would do to the app that we were already building. So we have exactly about 2 days, day and a half now of actually working on this. So I will give you a quick overview. The basic bit of what we were working on, this is great, I get to type on a screen in Windows. Oh, this is so lovely. Basic bit of what we were starting with is an application that sure will load any moment now. Right, which is an application that we're working on. I'm going to show you a little bit of the kind of the web version of this, which is around a story creation tool, so that you can start with collections that originate with NARA. This is such a beautiful browser. It renders everything so much better than Safari and Chrome. Is there a Chrome browser in here somewhere that I can use? That would be amazing. Because I have to say that of the things that we were, oh, is that Chrome? You're in Chrome. I'm in Chrome. How embarrassing. Not okay. I haven't tested this on Chrome for Windows at all. I can't browse anything. This is awful. You don't have Firefox? Maybe unlikely. Okay. Let me show you what we built instead, because this template is just not rendering. So what we thought we would do was essentially fork our own open source project into the brand new address of StoryHub at culture.eu. I think it's awesome that we own that domain. Being a quick tool, we've added some documentation at the bottom of it, looking very, very, very small on this magnification. Is there a way of actually messing with that to make it a little bit more human-sized? Yeah, that's more human-sized. That actually looks better. So we've added a bit of documentation here with sample accounts and things. The idea is that you can do some searches across all of the application APIs that were represented at our hackathon on Wednesday, Digital Public Library of America, HistoryPin, National Archives Europeana, and New York Public Library. Start doing some searches for material. I'm going to guess that this is going to render exactly as well here as the one that it's based on. Yep, exactly as well. That is so beautiful. See, I came up with lots of adapters, and yet it didn't work with my computer. Okay, well, if I can't show you very much on the screen, I'm probably going to have to make the screen very small. So we have material here coming in from a mix of New York Public Library, DPLA, et cetera, based on keyword search, which is a demo that everybody does a lot. What I would actually encourage you to do if you're running, well, the version of Chrome that I tested on, or iOS or Safari, or the version of Chrome that runs on my iPad, or the version of Safari that runs on my iPad, is that we can start adding these items that came back through these APIs, adding them into stories that then get stored on the Story Hub Culture Reuse server. The original objects stay where they are. We just reference the links from where they are. And that you can then start adding in chapter titles, subtitles, just kind of create a little narrative, create a shareable thing that has its own little URL. So I have to say, except for my template not rendering at all and therefore not being able to show you any functionality whatsoever, I'm going to say this live demo was an outstanding success. And I will point you to the developer resources page in the hackathon document, where I've linked both the original one that this was based on and also the version of the template that we kind of created. In the next week, we will kind of continue to work on the kind of Story Hub, more general version of this. This is going to be not exactly something I fold into the app we're working on with National Archive immediately, but instead we'll start working on some other sorts of templates, including some fairly much simpler ones, and other sorts of account login details, things like that. For the moment, though, I've given a login in the document that you can use for the moment in order to at least be able to play with creating a story, creating a collection, presumably on a computer, not this one. All fairly straightforward when it actually works, based on doing live searches across these various APIs in terms of trying to find new stuff. But as I've said, not tested terribly well yet, at least on this browser. So a couple of things working, a couple of things not working, a couple of things that I would like to work better, etc. And saving and sharing from there. Okay, thanks very much.
Do we have Joel and Ricky? No? Going once, going twice? John?
So hi, I'm John Rezig. I'm a developer based out of New York. One project that I'm currently working on, I wanted to show off here. I'll just preface this by saying that this URL should not be shared. It's going to be going live next month, but until then, I'm just going to demo it off. So I've been working with this consortium over the past year called the Pharos Consortium. And it's a group of art history photo archives that are scattered around the globe, a number in the US, number in Europe, and they specialize in providing photographs of artworks, so not the artworks themselves. And these are usually used for study, so art historians would go there and study the photos. And one of the things that's really nice about these institutions is that the photos come over a long period of time. So there are photos of paintings in here from the early 1900s all the way up to modern day. And so you can actually get a history about when works have been conserved, if works have gone missing. So like a number of these archives were referenced during World War II and after, for example, to know which paintings had been stolen by the Germans and what have you. So in the consortium here, they're starting to get their stuff digitized, get it up online, and so one of the things I've been doing is building a database for them to kind of house these images. I just want to show it off a little bit. So currently we have about 120,000 images representing 52,000 artworks, and you can see that this is depending on the artwork. There can sometimes be many different representations for a single artwork. Let's see if we can find some here. So this is all stuff from about the 16th century. And the institutions themselves provide some metadata that we replicate here. So in this case, this is an anonymous work, and the date range is incredibly broad. But one of the things that I felt would be really important is that these archives are providing this information. However, what would be really useful and important is if we're able to build links between the institutions and their resources. And so one of the things I have here is you can go through and find works that are similar to other works at another, in this case, at another institution. Maybe. Hang on a second. Okay, I'm not sure if the internet's being slow. All right, let's try this again. Okay, so these are all works that are that have a similar item. So here we go. So this is a particular painting that is being represented in the Frick Art Reference Library, and here is another copy in the National Gallery of Art Library. Very appropriate, given where we are. And so you can see here the National Gallery of Art has multiple photographs representing this one artwork. The Frick has one, and you can compare their metadata here. So like here, the date is a 100-year period. Here it's only a 50-year period. Now this is again this can be very, very useful, especially if you find differences. So like here's one. The Frick said that this is an anonymous work. They don't know who made it. However, the Zeri Foundation in Italy says, oh, well, this is done by this particular artist. And they gave it a very precise date, whereas this date was a 700-year period, which is almost certainly wrong. And whereas this one that's 18-year period. So again, what really excites me here is that institutions, this is the promise of getting institutions to start collaborating with each other, is that you can start to fix mistakes, copy information back and forth amongst the institutions, and so that's I feel incredibly exciting. Now, what's interesting is that, at least to me, is that this would not be possible using linked data because nothing agrees with each other. What I should say, not nothing. There are things that do agree. However, there are a lot of cases where they do not agree, and this is a perfect example. These things would not have come up as a match for one another. Artist doesn't agree, date doesn't agree, categories don't agree, the title doesn't agree. The only thing that agrees is the actual image itself. So I just want to provide one other example. Let's bring up a screenshot. This is another one from 4 different archives. Each archive has a representation of this particular painting. They all have pretty much agreement on the title of it. And I should say that the institutions are in different languages as well. Some are in English. We have English, German, Italian. We'll have a Dutch one as well. And again, this is another case where the information, there's every single institution disagrees with each other, disagrees in the attribution, disagrees in the dates, and this is going to be very, very useful because now they can start to go in and start to build some consensus around what hopefully the attribution and dating should be for this work. So this is something I'm excited about, that I want to start bringing this to a larger audience. This is building off of the initial work I did with the ukiyo-e site that was mentioned earlier. But this is all the code for this is open source. I'm going to be open sourcing this officially next month as a thing that people can use. But yeah, so I'll just wrap up there. Thank you.
Okay, since Chad doesn't want to talk about his hackathon project, which I will just talk about on his behalf. Is that all right? So mostly Chad, but I spent a little bit of time working with Chad yesterday trying to improve on Ben Armentor's hackathon project from last year called DPLA, which is to get Blacklight, which is a framework for building catalog interfaces or discovery interfaces on top of search indices to work with the DPLA API. And Chad has made some progress, but it's not really something that's easy to demo right now, especially since we can't project. So, but we'll be sharing more information on GitHub because it seems like a lot of people in the DPLA community, in particular DPLA hubs, are interested in this. So, unless anybody else wants to volunteer to do a presentation, I think that's it. Unless people have questions for any of the presenters, because we have a little bit of time. Yep, Brett. Or
I don't mean to hijack. I can just make a really short announcement if that's cool.
sure, yeah, absolutely.
I hope everybody knows we're running this contest with the Library of Congress. I'm with NEH. So NEH and Library of Congress, we have this project called Chronicling America. It's like newspapers. We have an API. We're running this contest. We want developers to write cool projects that use the API in one way or another. Anything you want to do that just shows up how newspapers data can be mashed up, can be used in different ways. And we're giving out prizes of $5,000, $3,000, $2,000. And if anybody's interested, we'd love to have all you guys apply, so please feel free to do so. I've got cards for it, which I will leave here if anyone wants a copy. Just see me. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Brett.
Sorry, in the theme of other people talking about other people's work, is JSON-LD here? I never met you, but I don't want to talk about something that there's somebody else. Okay, so she's not here either. Okay, so at the hackathon introduction session 2 days ago, JSON-LD from Northeastern basically came in with an idea for a project, and one of the DPLA staffers, Audrey Altman, sat down with her and started working on it, and both of them couldn't be here, so I'm speaking on their behalf just to kind of talk about what they did. But JSON-LD wanted to customize a WordPress plugin that allows you to embed a search box in a WordPress site that runs off and runs a query against the DPLA API, and she wanted to be able to kind of pre-filter those queries by institution or some subject terms or something like that, so that people who come and use that embedded search plugin don't hit all 13 million records, that they only hit the 3,000 or 10,000 records that would be appropriate for that particular case. So Audrey sat down and started working on that and is pretty close to having it. So look for either a fork of that existing WordPress plugin or something else. Anyway, pretend that was Audrey and Giordano.
So, thanks. I guess there are no other questions. Any other questions or announcements? Grievances? Rotten Tomatoes?
The question for John, the similarity between images, is that like across like sections of an image? So like the one example you showed, there was like several close-ups of sections of the image. That is what you're doing, kind of doing with that.
Yeah, so the question was, can this image similarity work across sections of images? And it does.
Okay.
I did an analysis on another algorithm just like this one, and it's essentially on that one, once you started looking at portions of the image that were smaller than 20% of the full image, the quality really dropped off.
Okay.
But I need to do that analysis with this one as well. But essentially, just that the less overlap you have, the less chance you have.
Okay, cool.
Great. Any other questions? Feel free to mill about. Closing plenary is not until 3:15, so feel free to ask the speakers' questions, and thanks for coming to the Developer Showcase.